everybody. Welcome to the Inside Scoop with Franziska and Eka. We are here today with Dr. Karen to talk about teens and ghosting. Dr. Karen is a psychotherapist, parenting coach, and relationship advisor who has been providing individual marriage and family counseling for 30 years in private practice, often appearing on national and local television for her cutting-edge tips for real-life changes. And we will put all of how you can reach Dr. Karen if you have any questions in the comments below. But for now, welcome, Dr. Karen.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to talking today. Yes, let's do this.
Well, can we just start by talking about what ghosting is? Because I think everybody thinks about online dating, but it goes way beyond that, right?
Oh, it goes way beyond that. So as parents, often your teen may come to you, they're feeling so sad because they feel like all of a sudden out of nowhere, someone they were talking with and feeling connected with and close with may have even communicated with them in person, not just online. And this person just disappears, vanishes, stops responding, stops communicating. So in essence, what is ghosting? Ghosting is just that. The person you've been communicating with is missing in action. It's a relationship exit. There's no response. There's no explanation. There's no communication. In essence, it's the ending of a relationship by ceasing all contact, all communication. No longer can you have a response to your reaching out. It's like an empty hole your communications are going in. That's what ghosting is. Literally ghosting. The person becomes whoosh, a ghost.
Okay, so now as a parent, your kid comes to you and they say, I was talking with Penny, we were like buds, and now she's not responding. As a parent, what do I say? I say, okay, Penny, my first reaction is to be like, who cares? Penny's a biatch, because that's what I do as a parent. As anybody who's watched knows how I am. What am I really supposed to be saying to my kid?
Yes. So instead of the name calling about the other person, what is most helpful for your kid? So what's most helpful is to help them understand that the ghosting action says everything about the person that has committed the ghosting action and nothing about your child. Ghosting is about the person who's ghosted. They've made that choice. That's the first step. And then you explain what you mean by that. First, you start with that. You take a breath, see how your child responds, because sometimes that's all they need to know. Think about short attention span theater. You say that, you're done, the ends. But if they need to know more, if you see they're still chewing on that, that's when you say, the reason why Penny or whoever it is that ghosted is because ghosting allows there to be a lack of confronting and communication. It's an avoidance of dialogue. So whatever's going on with your friend or the person that you thought might be a potential date or somebody you thought was special to you, that they chose that action because they are avoiding the communication. That's on them. And good for you for not being. Third tip, third spot, third action of this formulaic equation is good for you for not doing that. Good for you for being somebody who wants to have a communication with somebody else, whether it's the beginning of a dialogue or the end of a dialogue. So in essence, you're teaching your kid not to be a ghoster, to be someone who understands how it makes sense someone else's behavior, and to be somebody who is a communicator rather than a ghoster.
So why do you think that ghosting has become such a prevalent thing today? Is it like, have we lost our ability to communicate anything that is, not pleasant, maybe even a form of confrontation? Or why is it now? And is it just that it's something that came with cell phones and digital media?
Yeah, It's easier for somebody who is deciding that they don't want to be in contact with the other person, whether it's because they've lost interest, or and they don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. The ghoster is not, always evil, per se. That sometimes they don't want to say the reason why they don't want to communicate anymore. So it could be from a place of caring about the other person. They don't want to hurt the other person's feelings, but ultimately the outcome results in a person not feeling like they understand why the person ended things, stopped communicating. As far as its prevalence, I see it as that technology is a vessel, if you will, that has allowed ghosting to be able to occur, because of the fact that a lot of dialogue happens via social media, via apps, via technology. We can just shut it off and stop the communication. And other times, somebody has made us feel uncomfortable and we actually don't want to have the conversation ourselves. So it's a self-preservation. Sometimes ghosting is our own self-preservation, and sometimes it's not wanting to hurt the other person. And sometimes it's because we don't want to confront and dialogue about what the issues are. And sometimes it's conflict avoidance. It could be any one or more of those things. In essence, though, the prevalence, I believe, is very much tied into the vessel of which we use most of our communications, which is, technology.
So is ghosting similar to like ditching? When you got ditched by your friends. I mean, is it technical ditching, basically?
Yes.
For lack of a better word, or
Yeah, it is technical ditching. Yes, it's technical ditching. The difference is, though, back in the day before technology, you usually run into people, you see people, because the people you're connecting with and associating with, because we don't have digital technology, you often only are communicating with people in your circle that you see in person. You see them in person, so therefore you're communicating with them in person, and then you'll see them again. Whereas so much of our communication now is with people who we may never see in person, or we haven't even seen them in person, or we don't have to run into them in person. We can avoid seeing them in person. So it is technological ditching, and the potential for never to have a communication with them ever again.
I mentioned to Eka this earlier, what you just said. This is like my biggest nightmare. This is, I think, why I cannot ghost, because I'm just thinking the next time I go to Target, I'm going to run into them for sure. And it's just going to be so awkward that the anxiety about running into them is just too high for me. But I did notice that there is a trend, in like hobbies, teams, and stuff with my kids, that people tend to just disappear. They don't even tell the coaches anymore. They're like, they just stop coming there too. And I don't know. I think it's just, I have a hard time understanding that, honestly. And maybe it is because I think, at the end of the day, yes, there are lots of people we never see, but there are also still a lot of people we do see. And that makes me so uncomfortable that I just have a hard time understanding, people just kind of, disappearing from a team and not even saying goodbye, kind of.
Right. So that there's a similarity there, in the sense that there's an avoidance of wanting to confront what the discomfort is. That would be in that type of example. And the idea that it's all about me, there's an element of that. It's, I no longer feel comfortable, or I don't want to be on this team anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. So if I am making this choice for me, I don't owe it to anybody but myself. And there is a piece of that has happened more in this generation. There was more of a mentality and philosophical way of thinking about a we generation. And there is truth to this is more of an it's about me, my discomfort. If I don't feel comfortable, then I'm not going to do this. I don't owe it to anybody else. Now, if parents are supportive of that philosophy and or have taught that philosophy, or don't teach differently than that philosophy, then children will indeed believe that that is acceptable, and they'll continue to operate in that way, that I don't owe it to anybody else other than myself. And if I no longer want to be on this team, I'm not going to explain it to anybody else. I don't owe it to anybody else. So unless we teach differently, that is the current running philosophy. And not all parents don't teach that. Some parents say, if you're choosing to no longer be on the team, then you need to go up to the coach and I'll help you, with how to do that if you're not sure with how to communicate it. But it's important that you access that ability and that skill. But sometimes parents themselves are afraid to confront their children. They don't want to upset their children. And that becomes more enabling than anything else.
Okay, so now let's turn it the other way. I have a child who has friends that are not being that nice, and she doesn't want anything to do with them, but she doesn't even want to talk to them anymore. Should she talk to them? Should she just be like, okay, I'm done, and now, or does she need to actually go and make herself vulnerable and say, you've hurt my feelings, whatever. I want to end this friendship. Can't she just end the friendship and just be done with it?
It's a great question. You see how there is no cookie cutter approach, because each scenario is different. In one scenario, it may be about the importance of having the ability and the skill set to confront a situation and to communicate one's needs. In another scenario, advocating for self is about the non-communication to the other person, and that is the healthiest version. So it really does depend on the situation. And that's why if you have a relationship with your kid who, if your children talk to you about such things, it's really a wonderful thing that you've done as a parent, because now you have this communication opportunity to explore with them both options, to say, well, let's play this out. If you were to no longer engage in dialogue with these friends that you don't want to be friends with anymore, if you do not confront and you just let it seep away, and just over time, you're just not communicating with them anymore, and that's it. How will that feel, do you think, for you? What's the advantage? What's the disadvantage for you, for them, for the dynamic? What are your thoughts? Versus if you were to go to them and say, the way in which you treated me was not okay, and I'm choosing to no longer remain in this relationship. How might that play out for you? How does that feel for you? So explore both versions with them, and don't tell your child what to do. Provide them with the options and ask them what they want to do and why. What happens is this allows empowerment. This allows growth of understanding of one's own feelings and decision-making skill set, because now they are choosing their option, not just based on an instinctive reaction. They're choosing it based on a self-awareness, a consciousness about why they're choosing what they're doing and how to do it. And the next time they might do something different. That's okay. So those are my thoughts on how to make a decision and what to do as a parent to help your children, to help themselves, to make decisions for themselves with you as the cheering squad, so to speak, and supporter, and safe and healthy place, giving them a safe space to be able to explore options in their understanding of themselves and why. So they also develop that critical thinking skill as to, why am I making this decision now versus a different decision another time?
Okay, I need a do-over because I messed that one up. My whole thing was like, get in here and I'm gonna shelter you, and everybody else can just go pound salt, like, I hate them all. Come here, I love you, and I'm gonna make sure that nothing happens to you. Okay, I need a do-over.
Yeah, you know what? We do our best based on the information that we had and even have and had at the time. No self-shaming in what you did. Your child feels loved and supported by you, and it's all good. And you'll have other opportunities because you know what? No matter what age your child is, truly, as they age, no matter what age, you're always the parent. And you can always have dialogues with them, and you could always make shifts just like they can make shifts. So don't worry about the do-over. Moving forward.
I'm going to bring up this story to the screen, and then maybe I did actually ghost someone once on social media. Just says it was someone who I think thought we were friends and was crossing over a lot of boundaries I hadn't set up well. I did eventually just make a general social media post saying I wasn't really comfortable chatting with people I didn't know well in my DMs. So how does that relate to ghosting? Is it ghosting because she actually made a statement saying I'm exiting this relationship, right?
But it sounds like she made a blanket statement to avoid one person.
Yeah.
Can we move that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So sometimes, like in this case, and thank you for this listener, viewer, for writing in. This is not an uncommon story, and I see this not just with teenagers, and I see this with dating with adults, and I see this with friendships with adults. I mean, this is what we're talking about today is age vast. It's among the masses, and sometimes people post a feeling or an opinion or a perspective on their story in a mass post rather than directly to the person that they're wanting to speak with. So for different reasons, in this case, it was because this person felt that her boundaries were not being respected. And so therefore wanted to make a statement. So it's certainly ghosting in the sense that the decision was made to no longer communicate, and it was ghosting for self-preservation. Remember how we talked about there are different reasons why people ghost. So in this example, it was for self-preservation. And then the choice to make a statement, though, that's each person's decision, how they want to utilize social media. If they're making a blanket statement for multiple people to read, you must think about, why are you doing that? Are you truly doing it because you want the other person to know this and they'll read it? Are you doing it because you're wanting many people to know this? Is this your way of feeling like you're advocating and having a voice? So just like I said, as a parent, give options and talk it through and let the person make their decision. That's in essence what I'm doing right now as well. I'm not judging whether it was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. It's rather self-introspect and ask yourself, why did I do that? To answer the question about the specific focus of today's program, though, was it ghosting? It was absolutely ghosting, because you ghosted the person. A statement to the masses is still a statement to the masses. It is not a statement to that person. You ghosted them. Boom.
Okay. So now, as the recipient, okay, I'm about to be ghosted. What's going to hurt me less? Being ghosted, or someone coming and saying to me, I don't want to be your friend anymore? What's gonna help me, looking at it, for me, what's less painful?
Either way you slice it, both hurt when you feel like you've been rejected, whether somebody comes to you and says, I'm no longer going to be engaging in an interaction with you, or if you totally ghost them and therefore don't engage in an interaction with them. Either way, someone else is making the decision for you, and nobody likes to feel like their decisions are being made for them or their choices are being taken away. So either way, it's going to be hurtful. Now, being ghosted, one could see as more hurtful in the sense that it doesn't allow you an opportunity to say your own share, your own perspective, and for there to be a dialogue and perhaps potential for even closure. But the fact is, even if you haven't been ghosted and someone has communicated that they're no longer going to be enhancing a relationship with you, whether it's friendship or otherwise, they still might not hear your voice. You might still feel invalidated or dismissed or unheard. So either way, you're going to feel hurt. Overall, though, if I were to state my perspective is it's more hurtful to be ghosted because you're left with such unanswered questions and interpretation about the why. Whereas when somebody says the why, even if you're still thinking about, was that really the reason? At least there was an opportunity for you to hear it, and there was potentially an opportunity for you to say your share. So I believe more hurtful ghosting. Then again, it depends on what the person says to you when there's not ghosting. You see what I mean? So it's not a sure thing that ghosting is more hurtful. In general, though, a generalized answer to the question is ghosting can be more hurtful.
Do you think there is a part of this that people are so afraid, like when you, especially if things happen over text, that now somebody has proof and will actually like haunt you with it and say, no, you said this, and they will take apart every single word you typed or said. So that is that also a reason to ghost, so that you don't need to like be so careful with your words?
So you're asking about whether or not if ghosting is a self-preservation device to stop communicating with the other person, because if you communicate further, you're just going to end up having your words taken apart or repeated elsewhere. And so it's a way to create a boundary that you're struggling with, because you're not going to be able to just not have a healthy, you're not going to be able to have a healthy dialogue is what you're saying. So yeah, so that would be another example of a purpose of ghosting. You see, it's an interesting concept. Ghosting in and of itself at times could be hurtful and unhealthy, and at times could be healthy and helpful, depending on the circumstance. And that's why you want to evaluate why to stop communicating without communicating that you're going to stop communicating, versus why have a dialogue and then say we're not going to be communicating any further. Why are you making the choice one way or the other? What value or benefit does it serve for you, for the other person, for the interaction? What's the logic here? So to understand that will help you to make an informed decision rather than just an impulsive reaction to ghost. It's why. Why are you doing that?
There's a lot of gray in this, isn't there? A lot of gray area.
Oh yeah. There's definitely gray. I view it as there's rationale. There's a rationale for why we make one choice over another. And if we just understand what our choices are, why we're doing it, that's the most helpful way to make a decision. And as parents, if we're there as an opportunity for our children to be able to talk it through, that will help them. So that way they don't just become a conflict avoider, a blocker, a ghoster. Instead, they're making thoughtful responses about why, given circumstances, that it's not a cookie cutter approach to all circumstances. So if gray means that it's not a one cookie cutter approach, then yes. Though I do believe that there's no such thing as a cookie cutter approach. I mean, there can be. We can live our life cookie cutter-esque, but there's so many nuances and variables to ourselves as individuals, to relational dynamics, to what's happening, that it's important to use critical thinking skills and make decisions based on scenarios. And that's great for life in general. So that way, as your teens age, they're able to make decisions about how to interact with others based upon taking the time to really self-reflect and understand what they're feeling and the why.
So if we are sitting down tonight with our teens for dinner and we want to talk about ghosting, what is your suggestion of how to start that conversation?
Have you ever heard of ghosting? That's literally what you'd say. You just throw it out there. You don't have to preface anything. Just throw it in there. You just say, have you ever heard of ghosting? And they'll be like, yeah. why? What? That was random. That's probably what your teen will be like. That was random.
Right. They'll say.
Then you'd be like, well, actually, I was just watching this program, about ghosting, and I was interested in if that's something that you feel like is going on these days with you kids. And they'll be like, oh my God, totally, it's totally going on these days. I know what ghosting is. That's how you bring it up.
There you go. Easy peasy.
That's right.
Oh my God, Mom.
Yeah, really.
Of course. God, where have you been?
And I do want to mention that sometimes as parents you just wish you had somebody that you could once in a while like have a coach to just help you through. And so if I may just say, if there's ever a parent that's listening to this program and they feel like, wow, I just wish I could meet with Dr. Karen just for one time to have a session, and or for a few times or whatever it is. Sometimes parents think, oh, if there's, the experts on a program, they're not available or you can't reach out. I want your listeners and your viewers to know with all sincerity, I'm a regular person, even though I'm right on the big screen, so to speak. And this is what I do. I help parents, I help people, individuals, adults, couples, children, families. And so if anybody wants to reach out because they want to schedule an appointment, whether it's one appointment, whether it's 5 appointments, 3 appointments, they want to discuss the situation, they want advice, they can absolutely reach out to me. All of my contact information is on my website, drkarenruskin.com. That's my website. And they could just see what my phone number is or my email is and give me a call or send me a note and say, hey, Dr. Karen, I'd like to schedule an appointment. What do you got for me this week? And we could set something up. And I'm happy to do it. I'm very reachable. And I believe that all people deserve an experienced professional to provide concrete advice to help themselves and their families. So I'm here for your listeners and your viewers if they ever want to schedule anything. Okay, whether it's tomorrow or the tomorrows of tomorrow, any day, whenever.
That's great to know. I think everybody needs an unbiased professional to kind of look in when things aren't going right, because you get stuck in your own head about what you should and shouldn't be doing. And sometimes it takes an outsider to look in and go, hey, have you considered X, Y, and Z? And that's great to have that third party in there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes, people think, I don't want to be like in therapy for years or in counseling for years. I just have a few questions, I just want some concrete ideas. And that's why having someone who's very experienced and is solution driven, and that's what I do. I'm very solution focused and very directive. And so folks that are wanting that, it's an option available, and not everybody knows that option is out there. So I want to take a moment to really thank you for bringing me on your show, so it allows your listeners, your viewers, not only to get the knowledge from today about ghosting, perhaps even to be thinking about further dialogue with their teens about other topics too, but also that way they know that there is somebody out there that has their back, and if they need quick answers and want to schedule an appointment, I really am here nationwide, wherever in the United States. As a coach, I can schedule an appointment and give them some.
Well, that's great, because this is what we're about. I mean, our whole goal, our mission is basically to help parents, parent their teens and tweens, because we can't do it alone,
Yeah.
And hearing and also feeling like you're not alone, like you're not the only person who's lived through this. I mean, I can't be the only mother who lived through my children having been ghosted and my children ghosting, and how to handle it. And sometimes you need somebody else to tell you that, especially if it's your oldest. I think when you have subsequent children, you might be like, okay, I have some experience. But when it's your oldest and it's your first time, I think you need somebody. So thank you so much, Dr. Karen, for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure talking to you. And for our viewers, the Dr. Karen's website is in the comments, and so are her social media handles if you want to follow her. And yeah, we will be back next week. Have a great week, and thanks for watching. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Karen, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.